Hey, wonderful. Hello, everybody. Bob DiGiacomo, Intentional Growth Coaching, coming to you from beautiful. Well, it's not sunny, is it? Well, no, outside it's pretty doggone overcast, and the humidity is so heavy that I'm desperately looking for a York peppermint patty to take me back up onto that mountaintop where there's snow and all sorts of wonderful things. And I've had to plaster this down because being in this shelter from home thing and no barbershops, the hair is just growing and growing. I know it doesn't look like it, but oh my gosh, it's just blowing in the wind. But enough of that. Let's be positive. Today's title is actually to promote a podcast that I published yesterday, and I'm going to repost it down below this when we're done. And you can see the title going on. There will come a time when your hero will disappoint you. There will come a time, the person that you have looked up to, you have thought that they could do no wrong, and yet they do. This podcast that I posted yesterday, I went so deep in the research on this one. I even took it as far as Dante's Inferno. And I don't know how many of you know about Dante and the Inferno, the Divine Comedy, but it talks about the 9 layers of going through purgatory and hell. Today, I'm going to focus that on the fact of John's book, the title, so profound. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. And this is a book you definitely want to get. I've used it, I've read it, I've taught from it, I've learned from it. Certainly John describes some mistakes that he has made, and yes, even he has let people down. Now, I'm not going to go into the information I put in the podcast because I really want you to get that information from the podcast, but I'm going to speak about 2 people today. Abraham Lincoln. For those of you that know him, you realize that he's got this awesome monument sitting in Washington. It's called the Lincoln Memorial. And there's this big statue, of Lincoln sitting there. And Lincoln has gone down in history as being one of the best presidents of the United States. Of course, you may choose not to think that way. There have been several great presidents of the United States, but along the way, they were not always in the positive light. They disappointed people right throughout their lives, and for some of them, they disappointed them right during their presidency or even after their presidency. Of course, what many of you may not realize is that after Lincoln was elected, because the North and the South were at loggerheads, they were at the boiling point, the breaking point, Lincoln had to take a train from where he was located in Springfield, Illinois, and that train had to go through Baltimore to get him to Washington. Now, Baltimore, part of Maryland was a slave state. And what many people don't know is that there was a conspiracy to assassinate Lincoln before he even got to Washington. You may only know of Lincoln's assassination back in 1865 with John Wilkes Booth in the Ford Theater while Lincoln was attending a show. No, there was another attempt. But as far as Lincoln disappointing people along the way, he had so many failures in his life until the day he finally succeeded and got elected president. And if history serves me correct, it took 53 ballots at the convention before they finally decided that he should be the candidate to run for president from the Republican side. Now, another individual I want to mention is a fellow by the name of Charles Pomeroy Stone. I know you probably have never heard of him. But he, too, was around during the American Civil War, and he, too, had an illustrious but also a disappointing career. In fact, he actually fell from grace at one point until he went over to Africa and organized armies over there, and his reputation was regained. But what most notably is known about Charles Pomeroy Stone was that he was sought out by President Grant because he spoke French. And the French had just recently sent over this big package to the United States. You may know where I'm going with this. And Grant had to get Charles Pomeroy Stone, to translate the instructions for this big package, which turned out to be the pedestal for the Statue of Liberty. Had it not been for Charles Pomeroy Stone regaining his reputation and being called upon, because you see, just a few months after he did that, he succumbed to pneumonia and passed away. So where am I going with this? Sometimes someone that you consider to be a hero in your life is going to, will disappoint you. Is that we all go through ups and downs in life. And there is temptation and there is all sorts of things. Does that mean that that individual should be just cast aside? Or do you realize that there is room and faith in the grand overall designer, that there are better things to come? So I do want you to click and listen to my podcast. I would love some comments about my podcast. I researched, I dug deep based upon, well, the podcast will explain all about that. In the meantime, I'm hoping that the sun will come out, and today's the day. Got to make the most of it. So until next time, Bob DiGiacomo, Intentional Growth Coaching.